Personal story segment tonight. Just about everybody believes Hillary Clinton will be the Democratic nominee for president in 2016, but there are some on her left that may give a challenge. One of those may be Senator Bernie Sanders from Vermont, who joins us now from Washington. So, Senator, I'm not going to debate you tonight. I just want to get your positions on the record. I might give you a little jazz, but primarily I just want to know what you think. So let's start with number one. You are a socialist. What does that mean?
What it means is that we have a lot to learn from democratic socialist governments that have existed in countries like Denmark, Sweden, Finland, Norway, where all people have health care as a right, where higher education is free, where they have a strong child care program, where they don't have the massive type of income and wealth inequality that we have in the United States of America.
All right, so cradle to grave entitlements, then, in order to raise the money to do that in a nation of 320 million, because Sweden has 9 million, all right, you have to tax. So, yep. I make a lot of money. Did you know that, Senator?
I kind of guessed that.
Yeah, I make a lot. So, what is my income tax rate under your administration? What would it be?
It'll be more than it is right now.
No, give me a number. Give me a, you know.
No, I'm not going to give you a number. It's something that you have to look at and study.
70, 80%?
Well, we used to have, as you know, under Dwight D. Eisenhower, I think the nominal tax rates were over 90%.
Yeah, but you know.
The point is, look, Bill, you have massive income and wealth inequality. You got 1 out of 4 corporations in this country paying nothing in taxes. GE has not paid federal income taxes.
But you got to give me, as a voter, an idea of what kind of pain you're going to inflict on me. So,
well, you're not going to get it right now. That's a policy question.
All right, you're going to punt on that one. Okay.
Not punting on it. You're going to pay more. How much more, I can't tell you.
But if you want to run for president, you have to tell me. Okay. Now,
well, we've got a little time on that.
Putin. Okay. So Putin is going to seize Crimea. What do you do to Putin?
Well, I think, first of all, the lesson that we learn is that we don't repeat what happened in Iraq and Afghanistan, where the United States virtually did it alone. We are a tight global community. The entire world has got to stand up to Putin. We've got to deal with sanctions. We have to deal with freezing assets. But the entire world has got to take action against Russian imperialism. You're
President Sanders, and you bring in Merkel, and you bring in everybody else in Europe. You go, this is what I want to do to Putin. What do you want to do, Senator? What do you want to do to him?
Well, you totally isolate them politically. You totally isolate them economically. They have assets all over.
Give me one example of an economic sanction you would like to see.
Well, you freeze assets that the Russian government has all over the world.
You freeze them. You say, hey, any Russian money in U.S. banks, English banks, you can't get it.
You tell
that's pretty harsh. You know, Putin's not going to sit for that. You know that.
Well, international corporations have huge investments in Russia. You could threaten pulling them out. There are a number of things that you could do, but this is what you don't do.
All right.
You don't go to war. You don't sacrifice lives of young people in this country as we did in Iraq and Afghanistan.
All right, so Putin invades Poland. You go to war for that? Say you did that?
Well, that's a hypothetical.
It is a hypothetical, but I want to know if you're a pacifist completely.
No, I'm not a pacifist.
Okay, so if Putin pushed it and started to really roll, you might have to take military action.
Well, the issue, again, is right now the United States alone spends almost as much money, Bill, on defense as the rest of the world.
Yeah, because
we're
the ones that protect freedom. The others don't really.
Yeah, but we also don't have enough. Yeah, I know, that's fine, but we don't have enough money to take care of our veterans. Our infrastructure is crumbling. Kids can't afford to go to college. So what we have got to do is work with the entire global economy and all the countries around the world.
Talk a little bit about the money issues right now with Chris Wallace. He's the anchor, of course, of Fox News Sunday. Chris, what about this information that we received that Bernie Sanders raised just as much about as Hillary Clinton over the last few months? And Ed Henry's final point there, that he did it not by traveling to these huge events, but just by being Bernie Sanders. What does it mean?
Well, it's good news for Bernie Sanders, not as good news for Hillary Clinton. He obviously had the enthusiasm advantage. As he travels around the country, he gets much bigger audiences than she does, and they seem more enthusiastic. The argument was, though, that she had the infrastructure, she had the big donors. So now you have the third quarter earnings or contributions, and he basically ties her, $2 million difference. And the other big point is that he's gotten a lot of it, not only through the internet, but it's small donations, which means he can go back to those people because they haven't bumped up against the $2,700 limit, the individual limit on how much you can contribute to a campaign. Hillary Clinton has a lot more big donors. She can't go back to those people because they may have been capped out. So it's a big advantage for Bernie Sanders over Hillary Clinton, the fact that he basically tied her in fundraising in the third quarter.
Bernie Sanders says he is a democratic socialist. Do you know what that means?
Bernie Sanders probably has my vote.
My personal choice about why I'm voting for Bernie Sanders is because I believe that he represents me.
You look like a Sanders supporter.
Yeah.
Colonel Sanders.
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
I am Colonel Sanders.
Is Bernie your type?
No.
A politician?
Oh, I see. We're getting acquainted.
Instead of having a body of government who dictates what everybody else is doing, it gives kind of the power back to the people.
That's the opposite of socialism.
Is it really?
You're putting me on.
So you want to make the rich less rich?
Sure, yeah. Equality?
Damn it! Who typed a question mark on the teleprompter?
Has a poor person ever offered you a job?
They have not.
This is where I live, little man.
Do you think socialism works?
I think socialism very well could work for us.
How does raising taxes on the rich help the middle class?
Never mind.
Do you have any idea what a democratic socialist is?
Obama.
Are you a democratic socialist?
I'm lean more towards socialism than democracy.
Bernie Sanders wants to raise taxes. What do you think about that? No? Not a good idea?
Wait, I don't want to be like one of your pinheads.
Too late.
Do you think socialism is good for America?
Yes, absolutely.
It wasn't very good for Greece, though, was it?
Let me think for a minute.
Now for a look at who is talking, presidential candidate Bernie Sanders reacting to his Republican rivals on stage, saying what he noticed more is what they didn't say at Thursday's debate. Take a listen to this.
What amazed me is not just the answers that I heard, it's the answers that I did not hear. Scientific community is virtually unanimous that climate change is one of the great environmental crises facing this planet. Not one word. Massive level of income and wealth inequality in America. The rich are getting richer. Almost everybody else is getting poorer. No discussion. Citizens United Supreme Court decision that allows billionaires to buy elections and buy candidates. Huge issue. Future of American democracy. No discussion at all.
But the word is, on the street, that the Democratic Party has put out, not so quietly, that if any of the four men attack Hillary Clinton, they're persona non grata within the party. And so they have been almost threatened. You do not attack Hillary Clinton on anything.
Yeah. Look, I think they've been acting that way. I mean, after all, you attack her and you will not be appointed ambassador to the Court of St. James.
And you'll be shunned.
Big night on the Democratic side of the presidential race. 5 candidates meeting on stage. First time they met in Las Vegas. First time at all. Reactions today have been mixed. Want to check in with John Roberts right now, our senior national correspondent, live from Las Vegas for a reaction today. John, good morning.
Bill, good morning to you. You know, we talked to Democratic voters across the country, and most of them tell us they don't want to see a coronation. But judging by what we saw on stage last night, Hillary Clinton could probably start getting fitted for her crown. If any of her 4 opponents wanted to knock her off her high perch last night, it certainly wasn't apparent. Any criticism of her policies or her record were tepid at best, light years removed from the fireworks of 2008. When Clinton was questioned about the email scandal that's dogged her campaign, her main opponent, Bernie Sanders, didn't attack. He threw her a lifeline.
But I think the secretary is right. And that is that the American people are sick and tired of hearing about your damn emails.
Thank you. Me too.
Let's talk about the real issues facing America.
Sanders was rewarded for his support with a sharp attack on his record on gun control.
Going to give immunity to the only industry in America. Everybody else has to be accountable, but not the gun manufacturers. And we need to stand up and say enough of that. We're not going to let it continue.
All the shouting in the world is not going to do what I would hope all of us want. And that is keep guns out of the hands of people who should not have those guns and end this horrible violence that we are seeing.
Hillary Clinton has engaged in some impressive political gymnastics in recent weeks, moving from her record as a centrist to outflank Bernie Sanders on the left. But she denied last night pandering to progressives.
I have been very consistent over the course of my entire life, like most human beings, including those of us who run for office. I do absorb new information. I do look at what's happening.
Just for the record, are you a progressive or are you a moderate?
I'm a progressive, but I'm a progressive who likes to get things done.
So a big question today, was Joe Biden watching last night? And if he was, what does he think about getting in the race? Does he think, why bother? Or, hey, I need to jump in and challenge Hillary Clinton? We'll find out soon. Bill?
So, your critique of the debate last night is what?
You know, Billy, I watched it with the sound down and the picture down. So I didn't have a big take on it. But I assume Hillary, she's been vouchsafed into that role. So she'll, listen, it'll be our first Yogi Master president. I'm going to double down on my bet here. These are diminished times. There is no more leading exemplar of diminishment in the expectation of our public figures than Hillary Clinton. I think she's a lock to be the president of the United States because she's a perfect person for her times. I'm not saying that's a plus, but she perfectly represents the easy convictions of this time.
Now, depending on the Republican nominee, I may have a major wager with you on that, but we will see what happens. Now, the lane. How about Bernie Sanders, though? He's our kind of guy. We should get Bernie in the Don't Be a Pinhead show. You know, it's the millionaires, the billionaires. You know, I'm tired of it.
Listen, that's gold for our upcoming shows.
Yeah,
I can see you've been
great.
working on your Bernie.
Yeah, yeah.
I don't know anything about him. He looks like the least charismatic man that can draw 20,000 people in the history of the planet Earth. Let's say that.
I think Bernie is, I like Bernie. He's been on this program many times. I want him to go to Venezuela and report back on how well that socialism thing works out. I think Bernie and Sean Penn would be the ticket. I think Sean Penn would be the
Billy,
VP.
your problem is you personally like too many guys who are running us into hell.
If Hillary Clinton was as big a winner in Las Vegas as most of the commentators on the left and the right are saying, it wasn't because CNN's Anderson Cooper was tossing out easy questions.
You were against same-sex marriage. Now you're for it. You defended President Obama's immigration policies. Now you say they're too harsh. You supported his trade deal dozens of times. You even called it the gold standard. Now, suddenly last week, you're against it. Will you say anything to get elected?
Well, actually, I have been very consistent.
Senator Sanders, a Gallup poll says half the country would not put a socialist in the White House. You call yourself a democratic socialist. How can any kind of socialist win a general election in the United States?
Well, we're going to win because first we're going to explain what democratic socialism is.
The two top Democrats mixed it up a bit, but on Hillary's greatest vulnerability, Bernie had a message for the press.
Anderson, and let me say something about the media as well. I go around the country, talk to a whole lot of people. Middle class of this country is collapsing. Enough of the emails. Let's talk about the real issues facing America.
But I want to turn to Bernie Sanders. Before I ask you the question, let's take a look at him at the debate.
We're doomed. We need a revolution. Millions of people on the streets. And we got to do something. And we got to do it now.
Joining me now with her reaction is the chairwoman of the Democratic National Committee, Congresswoman Debbie Wasserman Schultz. Great to see you tonight, madam. So let me ask you this. There was a dust-up today with Tulsi Gabbard, who's a congresswoman and the vice chairwoman of the DNC. She suggested that she was disinvited from tonight's debate after calling for more debates and came out today and pretty explicitly called you a liar for denying that the DNC had done that. Do you want to respond?
You know, we've just come through 2.5 hours of a Democratic debate that showed more substance and a more robust discussion about how to move America forward from our 5 candidates than nearly 10 hours of the first 2 Republican debates. And our focus has been and needs to continue to be the contrast between our party's candidates and the direction they've moved this country and the Republican Party, who has been clearly making it very clear how they want to take us backwards. And, unfortunately, Congresswoman Gabbard continues to focus on process. Let me just state unequivocally that she was not uninvited. She was asked to focus on our candidates. And she very clearly has not been able to do that. But look, we had a debate tonight that I think the American people got a good close look at the 45th president of the United States of America, who was on that stage tonight, and contrast with a Republican field of candidates who have spent all their time trying to outright win one another.
Surprising to see a Democrat use these type of ad hominem attacks against a political opponent. It's just unusual to see it done against a fellow Democrat. Now, we remember back when Debbie Wasserman Schultz, the Democratic National Committee chairwoman, had her tenureship being challenged by the White House. There was a memo that leaked that said she had planned to say Barack Obama was waging a war on women. This is how inauthentic this attack line is. What surprised me, though, is Hillary herself seems to be the Pied Piper here leading this attack. Usually you put out your surrogates to say, oh, I think, put out the dog whistle. Oh, I think Bernie Sanders saying, she shouted. That's what they say about women when they're talking tough, right? So I'm more surprised that she's the one kind of driving this part of the narrative.
We all remember the moment at the Democratic debate, Harris. Remember? It was the big old high five between Sanders and Clinton. Yeah. We are far cry from that now.
Oh, they broke up.
Oh.
It was so sweet when they were
Got
dating.
Lincoln Chafee back in the race.
It seems like the senator just woke up and realized he might want to be president. And that's a problem for Hillary Clinton because he is funny and he is warm. And he does have passion. So it'll be interesting to see how they go up against each other, because I think she maybe undervalued his attributes.
You know what I think it is? Honestly, I think the burn has felt the sweet, tangy victory encompassing his soul and his body. And he likes that feeling. That burn is warm. And it is intoxicating.
What are we talking about?
Bernie Sanders wants to win. He has decided that with Jim Webb and Lincoln Chafee out, it's going to be him and shirtless Martin O'Malley and Hillary Clinton fully clothed, hopefully, on the stage, and he wants to feel what that is like to be the victor in a place like Iowa.
Yesterday on The View, something incredible happened regarding Bernie Sanders.
I thought that Bernie was so menschy in that moment, like a real guy. I actually am aroused by him. I'm serious. I find him to be eye candy, not ear candy, not ear candy, eye candy. I like an old Jewish guy who's a socialist. That's my type of guy. Everybody's talking about O'Malley and how hot he was, but to me, Bernie is hot.
So here's the factor tip of the day. Sometimes comments are simply not needed.
Citizen spy games potentially shaking up the race for the Democratic nomination. This amid reports that the DNC is punishing Bernie Sanders' campaign for improperly accessing Clinton voter data. How about this? Peter Ducey's on it for us from Washington. So did the Sanders campaign hack the Clinton campaign files, Peter?
No, but they admit that a staffer took advantage of a bug that a software company hired by the DNC to keep a master list of potential Democratic voters and their info had in the code. And it sounds like the Sanders camp was able to look at private notes next to voters' names that were written by the Clinton team for the Clinton team, not to be shared. The vendor now says, quote, for voters that a user already had access to, that user was able to search and view, but not export or save or act on some attributes that came from another campaign.
Well, the three Democratic presidential candidates facing off over the weekend in their third debate, covering some of the top issues facing American voters and the campaign data breach that caused Senator Bernie Sanders to apologize on stage. Ed Henry joins us live from Washington with more on this. So, Ed, foreign policy, a big topic at the debate. What are Republicans saying this morning about what Hillary Clinton had to say Saturday night?
Well, Martha, they're jumping all over her, and that's typically what they do on a range of issues. But what I think is significant is, you're right, this is about foreign policy, national security. What Hillary Clinton, that was supposed to be her strength as former Secretary of State. The last debate in Iowa some weeks back, remember, she slipped up when she said about ISIS just 24 hours after those terror attacks in France, this is not our fight. This is not America's fight. She had to clean that up. Then this weekend, she basically said that U.S. strategy in dealing with ISIS is now in the right place. A lot of people disagreeing with that statement. She also went after Donald Trump and said that ISIS is using videos to rally supporters and recruit more terrorists. Donald Trump demanding an apology because her staff can't produce which videos are out there. So listen to Republican Marco Rubio and what he said today about Clinton's performance.
She was the Secretary of State for 4 of his 7 disastrous foreign policy years, and the truth is that the threat of ISIS began to emerge in Syria while she was still the Secretary of State, and of course fully blossomed right after she left.
So the Clinton camp clearly still believes she has strong national security credentials. She's running away with the Democratic nomination despite all of this, but the real point is that some of these issues may come back in a general election.
Yeah. So there's a lot of pregame hype that the Bernie Sanders issue, that he was going to hit her hard on that data breach, but it seems that they're sort of protecting Clinton?
A little bit, because you're right. Bernie Sanders, despite all that hype, he apologized at the beginning of the debate on Saturday night and said, I'm sorry that his staffers had gone in and looked at some of the Clinton playbook on this Democratic website. They shouldn't have done that. Clinton accepted the apology. They still say they're going to investigate it, but everyone wanted to move on. And the point is, it's reminiscent of the first Democratic debate in Las Vegas when Bernie Sanders now famously said, I don't care about your emails. And it was an example of Democrats saying they're not going to hit Clinton hard on these issues. And I think let's also not forget, this was, again, for the second time in a row, a Democratic debate late on a Saturday night. Why is that significant? Well, the next debate is January 17th. That's a Sunday, Martha. And what else is happening on that Sunday? 2 NFL playoff games. So if there's any other Clinton slip-ups, a lot of people are going to be watching football that day.
Yeah, I think you're right about that. Ed, thanks.
Good to see you.
What the DNC did arbitrarily, without discussing it with us, is shut off our access to our own information, crippling our campaign. That is an egregious act.
Fireworks tonight when Senator Bernie Sanders was forced to respond to a data breach that allowed his campaign access to voter information belonging to the Clinton campaign. He's bitterly accusing the DNC of undermining his campaign. Have they all worked it out? Democratic National Committee Chair, Congresswoman Debbie Wasserman Schultz is standing by in Manchester. Welcome.
Thank you very much, Shannon. Great to be with you.
Okay, it sounds like he apologized tonight, said the offending staffer was fired. It sounded like Secretary Clinton accepted his apology. Do they move on? Is all well now?
Yeah, they did move on after they very quickly disposed of that, and I was very proud to see that Senator Sanders did the right thing and apologized and acknowledged that there was wrongdoing done by his campaign. And he said that, you know, subsequent staffers, if they were found to have been culpable, that they would be fired as well. And that was the right thing to do. And the most important thing tonight was our candidates, I thought, did all Americans proud by having a robust and substantive discussion about the issues that are important to move America forward. And in stark contrast, by the way, to the cage match food fight that happens when the Republicans get together.
We'll get to more of that in just a minute, but one more question on this. Something I hadn't heard before tonight. Senator Sanders mentioned that a couple of weeks ago, or a couple of months ago, there were other breaches of this nature, that they quietly went to the vendor who's working with the DNC on this, that things were resolved, that it had happened previously in the past. This time he said it was different. There were press releases. It went public. Don't know if he was suggesting anything by that, but is it true that this has happened in the past, and why this time did it become such a public issue?
Well, there was another instance in which there was a glitch that occurred that allowed the campaigns to potentially see one another's data. In that instance, which was on a separate part of the database, not the same as this one, there was absolutely no breach, and there were no candidates, staff that took advantage of that, and no proprietary information taken. The reason that this blew open was because, as Senator Sanders acknowledged, his staff did engage in wrongdoing and made the wrong decision this time, and as a result we had the events unfold as they did. But last night they answered our questions, agreed, as Senator Sanders said on stage tonight, to an independent audit and full cooperation. He apologized, and we are moving forward, and we're going to talk about the issues that are important to the American people.
And you did tonight, the three candidates, I think the most heated that we've seen, all three of them, a real challenging of each other, of each other's ideas. We did see some differences in the candidates and their philosophies on everything from ISIS to the economy tonight.
We did see them have differences of opinion on their approach on the economy, on education, but those differences were marginal, really. And at the end of the day, all of our candidates on stage tonight agree that we need to help Americans build those cornerstones of a middle-class life, help people be more likely to reach the middle class, and make sure that we can create opportunities for people to succeed. In contrast to the Republicans, who want to take Americans' health care away, and who believe that we shouldn't make student loans more affordable and education more affordable in this country, who think that chest beating is going to keep Americans safe rather than actually building coalitions with nations across the globe to combat terrorism and keep Americans safe. So much more agreement than disagreement from our candidates, unlike the Republicans.
Well, of course, the Republicans would take issue with all of those statements about how they plan to handle the economy and health care, which they want to, they say, reform and make sure that there's, and that's another debate and another night. In the meantime, we are just getting information coming in from the Sanders campaign that they have just suspended 2 more staffers in relation to the data breach. Your reaction?
Yeah, I saw that as well. Our understanding from the analysis given to us by the vendor was that there was more than one staffer involved, and Senator Sanders rightfully committed that if other staffers were discovered to be involved, that he would take action, and they seem to be in the process of doing that.
Bernie Sanders on the offensive, blasting a reporter for asking about his opponent's looks. The senator sitting down for a Q&A with New York Times Magazine. And when reporter Anna Marie Cox asked if it was fair that Hillary Clinton's hair get more scrutiny than his, Sanders responded, quote, "I don't mean to be rude here. I'm running for president of the United States on serious issues, okay? Do you have serious questions?" Cox pushed back, saying, "I can defend that as a serious question. There is a gendered reason." Sanders replying, quote, "When the media worries about what Hillary's hair looks like or what my hair looks like, that's a real problem." He did eventually agree it's, quote, "absolutely wrong for the media to focus on how female candidates look." Okay, maybe Bernie doesn't want to answer, Sandra, because he doesn't have any hair. So what hair is he talking about? But I would say this. He's very smart. He's not going to take the bait. That was a gotcha question.
Right, but and the reporter's just doing his job. He's trying to elicit a response from Bernie Sanders, which he got. That was the response, right? That he feels he shouldn't have to respond to the reporter. Look, I don't think any question is out of bounds. I mean, I think that you could obviously ask something unreasonable, but this was a test of Bernie Sanders, and I'm okay with it.
I'm just surprised at how much we're talking about Bernie Sanders now.
Like I never
and hair
with it.
Bernie Sanders
seriously,
hair.
It really has elevated his status. I think not just running for president, but the fact that so many people have focused in on the negative on Hillary Clinton through this email scandal. They're looking to him now to give them gotcha questions. Some would say that's a proving ground that you exist.
Rachel, he's very, very savvy because he knows the minute that he comments on her hair, even though Hillary Clinton talks about her hair and how she colors it and make jokes about the gray. If he says something, then all of a sudden she can say, "Oh, I wish Bernie Sanders would spend more time on the issues and less on my lid." Correct?
Well, yeah, but here's the interesting thing. The media didn't get the memo. Those kinds of baiting, racist, sexist questions are only for Republican candidates, right, Senator?
Right. Oh, yeah.
And make no mistake, if Bernie Sanders becomes a nominee, he or Hillary, both of them will be talking about racism and sexism all the time about Republicans. They just don't like the questions that come